My professional beginnings actually began at the age of 7. I didn't realize it at the time, but whatever I did as a professional musician, as a composer, number 1, a pianist, number 2, a teacher of music, number 3, occasionally even a conductor, or somebody who writes prose about music. All of this began at the age of 6 or 7, but at a very early age, I became interested in music so that my parents noticed that if I heard a tune, I would sometimes go to the piano and with my index finger, pick it out. And both my parents had some experience with music, especially my father. When recordings became available, 78 RPM recordings became available here all around 1940, 1941. And when we just purchased a phonograph record, he would buy some of them, and ostensibly he would buy it, I thought, for him to listen to. But it was I who did most of the listening. Anyhow, when my parents saw I was picking out with my index finger tunes that I had heard on the radio, there was no television in those days, they realized, well, maybe we ought to see to it that he has piano lessons. So they found a Hungarian immigrant teacher. Why is this important? It was important because the music that she gave me to play was very good music. The great advantage, and this is the point I'm really trying to make here, is that by having to practice to play this music that she gave me to work on, I would have to hear it over and over again. And by hearing it over again, I was learning something about music that I otherwise would not have learned about. And I'll never forget the day when I began a piece and all of a sudden I realized I was going from line 1 to line 2. What I was doing, and this is really a very vivid recollection on my part, I realized that I was learning how to compose, which meant continuing a piece. And if the piece is continuing, I also realized that it had to gradually become something that it wasn't in the beginning. Wallpaper music, it's the same thing over and over again. And there are times when certain pitches keep on coming back and say, my God, will you please get off and go somewhere else, please? At one point, I studied with a composer who was one of the finest composers whom I know. Not very well-known name. He was a Polish composer by the name of Karol Rathaus, who was again a total musician. He was a good pianist. When he had to conduct, he could do that too. Whereas the composers I was dealing with were not just people who wrote music or started with a theory and tried to translate the numbers into pitches. They knew about music because they experienced it at first hand. They were also encouraging me to do it. So in the year 1954, when I was studying with him, I decided that anything I write from now on would be something that would be in my repertory, and it would last for the rest of my life, and I would try to get it performed by good performers and possibly even to record it. And this indeed happened. Everything moved in my life so smoothly. At one point, when it turned out for my father that I was so interested in music and might even want to become a professional musician, he would ask me, well, don't you want maybe to go into civil engineering or something like that? In other words, he didn't want me to become the musician that he could become because he didn't enjoy the advantages that I was enjoying in the United States. I had married somebody who was a terrific pianist. In fact, she was a child prodigy. She played in Carnegie Hall with Leopold Stokowski. In fact, we have a photograph of her with Stokowski when she was a little girl. I learned about her because we were fellow students at the composition seminar at Columbia University, where we both studied with another composer of great repute, Otto Luning. And when I realized what a good pianist she was, I asked her to play a piece of mine which I had written for piano duet, piano 4 hands. But later on, when we got married, we decided, well, look, since we play piano 4 hands so well, let's develop a repertory, obtain an agent who would go and get us to play in Milan or London or what was then West Berlin, not just here, but in other parts of the world. My wife Genevieve had a very great role in encouraging me. Now, of course, my parents did to begin with. When I met Genevieve, I knew that there was somebody who had experience from a very early age. Remember, I said that she was a child prodigy. She began studying to play the piano when she was 4 years old. So that she had an understanding of what it was that I enjoyed doing. And she always encouraged me to do that. I mean, there are people who are principal in my life now who are still living. Beginning with my sister, who was several years older than I. She and I grew up together. In fact, she was really almost a parent to me when I was a little boy. Then, of course, there's my daughter, Kira. I mean, if you want to know what love is, okay, I guess we understand something about love because of our relationships with our parents. And I certainly discovered something about love when I met Genevieve. Now, it took a little while. She seemed to understand that we had a relationship some long time before I did. All right, so there was an understanding of love. But then when our daughter Kira was born, and it still gets to me now, there's another level of love which is really very intense and which doesn't ever go away. If I listen to a piece of Mozart, I'm inspired not to do something the way he did it, because I'm never going to be good enough to do it the way he did it. But still, I am so moved by his music that when I write it, I want to have other people moved by what I have done. And that is a way of understanding real inspiration. I will be leaving my legacy to anybody who might be interested in employing it. Now, one of the things which technology has made available to me is to allow all of my printed music to be available to anybody who wants to look at it. The last piece that I'm writing, which I'm now copying, when I'm done copying it, it will be included on that website. I can send a score to performers and say, will you be interested in it? So as long as that website is available to performers or to people who want to listen to the recordings that are also included on that, they can do all of that. It doesn't matter whether I'm around or not. The legacy is still available, and I have to thank technology for that. I would say the most important thing for future generations is not to think about yourself, but think about what you're doing. Find something that you do that is really worthwhile. To yourself, maybe, but to others, yes. If you can find something that you will find useful to something else, you may find yourself enjoying doing that. There's that word J-O-Y again. That would be my advice. How would I like to be remembered? I think the question really ought to be posed to members of my family. How do you already remember me? And if you ask my sister that question, she would have a very direct, immediate answer. Also, I mean, even Genevieve, I think, has grown to appreciate our relationship even more as we have grown older. She has, as also have I. So, you know, to be remembered, well, again, I can't tell you that. They can.